What I'd like to do today is really to do something that I haven't really seen before on video, or even in talking to you yourself. I'd like to start by getting the real Brenda Butler. Who is Brenda Butler?
Who am I?
You don't have to tell us your age, but where were you born, and roughly how long ago? A few years ago.
I was born in Hanworth in Norfolk.
Uh-huh.
I was born in the 40s.
Mm-hmm. So you're East Anglia born and bred, you can say that.
Yes.
And when did you move to Suffolk?
In 1953.
Right. You've been a very young girl at that, so.
Yeah. Well, that was because Dad was a farmer, and he moved the farms. He managed farms. So when this one come up in Suffolk, we moved to Suffolk.
Mm-hmm. What kind of farm was it? Was it arable or?
It was arable, but it did have cows. Yeah.
So is that where your love of animals came from?
Well, I ran the small holding from there.
Uh-huh.
Dad helped me, and we got the money, and I ran a small holding plus a gardening centre from there.
So you grew your own stuff that you...
Yes. Mum and Dad done it too. Mum worked on the farm, helped Dad and that, and we all me and my 3 brothers, we also helped Dad on the farm. And Mum grew flowers, and she sold the flowers down the bottom of the drive along with my vegetables. So, yeah.
And did you were going to school at that time as well, obviously? Did you enjoy school?
Yeah, I did. I left it. I cried when I left. I didn't want to.
Yeah. What was your favourite subjects?
Arithmetic and English.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you ever think of taking that further, going to college or university?
No. You
wanted to carry on working in the farm?
Yeah.
But you didn't carry on working in the farm, did you? What did you do?
I went into nursing.
How long did you work in the care home for?
About 20 years.
When did you have your first kid? I mean, how old were you when you had your first kid?
Gary, my son, is now 50, and my daughter's 48.
Uh-huh. So you're working in the care home at the same time as you were looking after 2 kids? Well,
Mum used to have the children for me while I was working.
More than that, at the time when you were bringing up 2 kids and you were working full-time on shifts in a care home, suddenly the Rendlesham Forest incidents happened, and you're finding time after that to do the investigations and the writings and the follow-up and all of it. And how could you possibly have managed all that?
Well, in 1979, because I was friends with some policemen, and they knew what that I'd done with UFOs, and I was interested in that. One of the policemen who I was friends with came and said to me, had I heard about the lights that had been seen over Rendlesham Forest? And I said, no, where's Rendlesham Forest? And he told me, and so I started going down there, and I had my dogs then, so I started going down there and taking my dogs down there in 1979, and that's when I learned about the UFOs and the orbs or the lights and that going over the forest.
And this was all before the famous events, wasn't it? It was happening for a long time before the events we know about. Yeah.
And then I met people down there, and I talked to them, and they were telling me all about what they knew about what happened down there. And
I'll come back to that. I still want to talk about Brenda before you get to 7980. Obviously you had... I don't want to go in too much into your relationships because you'll tell us as much about that as you want to, but I believe you lost your first husband under rather tragic circumstances.
He died in a parachute accident.
That's what I heard.
Yes.
Yeah. Was this something recreational that he was doing? He was
that's what he liked doing. They used to pull him behind a car, and he would go up, and then he dropped. Yeah, I think he dropped about 90 foot or something like that when he was right up. The harness broke. He was on his father's farm when that happened.
Oh my God! How old was he when that happened?
30.
That's tragic.
Yeah.
That must have hit you very, very hard.
Yes.
And it must have made the job of looking after your children and doing your day job even harder.
Yes, but you just get on with it, don't you? You have to.
you'd been interested in the paranormal for some time, hadn't you?
Since 1963 or 65.
Was this when you had your own sighting?
No. I did have a sighting in 65 when I was at the farm, but I was interested in just before that. I used to see ghosts and little children and see other things around the farm.
Really?
Yeah. And I saw the farmer walking about. But it was in 1965 that I had my sighting in the farm.
Did you not have an earlier UFO sighting when you were much younger?
Yeah, when I was 5.
Was that was your first UFO?
That was my first one. Yes.
Would you like to describe that to us, if you don't mind?
Well, I was at the farm at Martham in Norfolk, and I had rabbits up the top of the farmyard, and I was going up to them and I was talking to them in their hutches, and I was just talking to them and chatting to them and that, and then it was a lovely summer's day, and suddenly there was something dark came over top of me and blocked out the sun. And I just looked up to see what it was, and there was this great big huge silvery craft thing, which I thought might have been an aeroplane. Anyway, I called Mum, I called her, and she said, what's the matter? And I said, what is that thing up there? And as she came, that just went, zoom, over the trees and right across out of the sky.
Were you seeing ghosts before you had that first sighting?
No, not really. No.
When you were telling us that you started seeing ghosts when you were how old?
When I was about 5.
Okay.
When I was about 5, when I had that sighting, and then I used to see things around the farmhouse. Things used to move, and I got contact with these little beings and things like that.
When you say you got contact, they contacted you, or they appeared, or they spoke to you in your head, or what was
Well, at the farm where I saw this UFO, at the garden, we had a great big garden. We had about 2 acres of ground, and Dad used to farm up with vegetables. But halfway down, there was a railway track along the bottom of the gardens where we used to go watch the trains. But halfway down, there was a place which we called the Dell, which my brother and I called the Dell. And I was playing in there one day, and these little beings came. There was 4 of them, just like little jelly beans. They came as they shook, and that. I went, hello. And they squeaked. And then every time I went down there, they were there, and they remind me of little jelly beans. But they came quite a long time. I used to see them, and I used to go down there and play with them. But when I started school, none of those little things were anything like the children at school. None of them. And I wasn't interested in the children at school. I didn't want to know them. I just wanted to know my little jelly beans.
The jelly beans later looked like anything you came to recognise as maybe alien creatures? Or
yes, little aliens, little
greys?
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying not to put words in your mouth.
No, but yeah, I suppose they did look like little greys. Yeah.
And did they speak to you
in my head?
In your head?
Yeah.
What sort of things did they say?
Well, we just used to sort of chit-chat, like one of the things they would say was they used to like coming there, and they hoped they could continue coming there because they liked seeing me, and that sort of thing,
Did they?
It's just
did
sort
they
of like
say where they came from, or that didn't enter the conversation?
They came from a plant. Sorry, they came from a land. They did say a land from far away.
Okay.
That is one of the things they said.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So you continued to see creatures and ghosts right through your life from then on.
Yes.
And do you still see apparitions?
Yes.
In this house?
Yes.
Are they friendly apparitions?
Yes.
Yeah. Are they? Would you call them residual apparitions that are sort of, kind of, left over from a previous event, or do they actively communicate with you?
No, they communicate. I talk to them and they talk to me. And you see orbs all around the house. See orbs go across the floor. Or you see orbs go around the walls, all different coloured orbs. I've got photos of orbs in this house. I've got photos of other things in this house and all that.
And it never ever scared you or bothered you at any point?
No.
To link the paranormal experiences with your major experiences later, or your major work later, you used to take the American servicemen on ghost hunts on their own base, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
Do you want to tell us about that? I just think that's fantastic.
We started up a ghost club, because when we moved in here, we were the only English people lived in here. All the others up here were Americans, and they're all American servicemen. Well, we got friends with them, and so we decided one night in this room we'd start up a ghost club, because they said there was ghosts on the base, especially at the chapel and around. So that's what we did. We had about, 65 Americans, probably a lot more than that. I never used to be scared down at Rendlesham. I've been down there loads of times on my own with my dog. Yeah. Just lately, though, there's been these black figures that come out sometimes, really horrible black things.
Do you think that might be connected with the reputation that part of the forest has near Butler with witchcraft? Butler has a reputation for being one of the oldest locations or sites of witchcraft in England, isn't it?
We've actually seen it go on down there.
Witchcraft? People carrying out ceremony?
Yes. I met Dot in 1979 when I lived at the farm at Aldringham, because Mum had died and we'd moved from here to look after Dad for a little while. Anyway, I was at home and a knock come on the door, and Dad opened the door and he come back and he said, there's a lady at the door to see you, but she's a little bit inebriated. She's just been over the pub and to get courage to come over here, and she can hardly stand. So I said, well, you better ask her in. She came in and she said, are you Brenda, who's into UFOs? And I said, yes. And she said, I wonder if we could team up and do some investigating together.
That was the very first...
That was the very first time. Yeah, very first time.
But that was the first thing she said, you Brenda, can we team up?
Yes.
And what was her circumstances? She was working was she just a I don't mean just a housewife, but was she working as a housewife at that time, or did she have a job?
No, she didn't have any jobs. She just was a housewife.
Yeah. And she had 2 kids at the time as well?
Yes, Susie and Nick.
Did you like each other at first? You got on well?
Yeah, we got on really well.
Yeah?
Yeah, we did.
Isn't it a coincidence that it's only within a year of meeting you have this astonishing series of events?
Yes.
Because at that time she was officially the representative of Bufora in East Anglia, wasn't she? British UFO Research Association, yeah. So she would get calls either directly from Norfolk, or she would get it through Bufora headquarters, and you two would go out and investigate.
Yes, because I could drive, you see, and Dot didn't drive.
Yeah.
So I used to go and pick her up, and we used to go.
Yeah. And did you have a kind of set of operational criteria that you applied when you went on a research trip about a sighting? Or were you just asking questions about what had gone on?
No, I mean, we went in and we introduced ourselves and, sat and chatted for a little while, and then we sort of said, or I was the one who was doing a lot of the question, and Dot was videoing or taking the thing, and I just asked him, if they could tell us in their own words what they'd seen and where they were and everything. Mm-hmm. There was these 2 little girls who were with their horses when they saw a UFO come over top of them and that. Things like that.
So you did quite a few of those investigations?
Oh, yeah, we did, yeah.
Did some of those make the Eastern Daily Press, those events?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
So they'd still be in the archives if we wanted to look at those.
Yeah.
And that was between 1979 and 1980 you were doing that, or did you carry on doing that?
No, we carried on doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it didn't stop with Rendlesham and the book and all the rest of it. You carried on. When did you sort of stop doing that? You remember?
What stopped doing?
Stop doing the investigations together.
Oh, together, because I still do them even now.
I get that.
Yeah.
The two of you.
When Dot moved, when she moved down to Pennington, where she lives now.
On the south coast, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's on the south coast.
Yeah.
Well, why did she move because of her husband's job, or why did she go down there? Do you know?
Well, she went down there because she's fed up with UFOs, and she said she's got to change completely.
Tell us about the radio station.
That was Radio Orwell. I went on Radio Orwell to give talks. They asked me to go on to give talks. So I used to go on there once a week and give a talk about UFOs and orbs and spiritual things and things like that. And I'd done it for quite a long time. And then I started talking about Rendlesham and Bentwaters or Woodbridge. I started talking about what went on there. And of course they got a bit uppity about it, didn't they? Said I wasn't allowed to.
Was that because there was phone calls coming in from the base, maybe saying we don't want this to
That's
be
right.
highlighted?
Yes, so I got a phone call one day and said if I was going to continue to talk about Woodbridge and what went on there, they wouldn't have me on there anymore. So anyway, I did, didn't I? I got some more information and I went on there. I was talking about what the Americans said they'd seen and what they were doing. And anyway, they told me, they said, I wasn't allowed. They'd got it from above. They just said they'd got it up from above on high, that I wasn't to go on there anymore. And so they told me that they were cancelling me going on there. So it was when I finished doing Radio Orwell.
Tell us about the first time you heard about the Rendlesham Forest incident.
That was from a policeman. That was from a local policeman who I was friendly with. He knew that I was into UFOs and the paranormal. And I got talking to him one day and he asked me if I'd heard about what was going on down at Rendlesham. And I said, no. Do we know where Rendlesham is? Anyway, he told me about the forest. And he said, well, I heard, he said that there's craft and great big lights through the forest, going through the forest. He said, one of the policemen who work at Woodbridge, he said, have been out there looking for something in the forest, don't know what he's looking for, but lights reported in the forest. And that's the first time I heard of it.
This is before the 25th of December, 1980.
Oh, this was in 1979.
Right.
This was, right. Yeah.
So when was the first you heard about the 1980 events?
Well, that came into the 79 one, basically, when I was investigating the 1979 one, and I was meeting some of the Americans down there, and and then Steve Roberts, who was a friend of ours anyway, he came to a party, a New Year's party, which we had at the farmhouse.
How much did he tell you about it, and what did he say that he himself had seen?
He said, at first, that a craft had come down, there'd been lights in the forest, and they'd been sent out to look to see what it was. And he said some of the guys said that they'd actually saw a UFO, a craft. And, basically that's all he said at the time.
Didn't he claim to have actually seen an alien or aliens himself?
No, that was Larry Warren who did that.
So Steve Roberts never actually...
He never ever saw anything, although it was reported that he did, but he didn't.
As you know yourself more than anyone, there are different versions of all of the aspects of the story, aren't there?
I know.
One of the most understood aspects of it is that Steve Roberts, who I think also reputedly worked for the Office of Special Investigations, perhaps, on the base, had told you that he'd seen that there had been a landing, but he was part of it on night 3, I think.
Yes.
He'd seen it, and he'd actually seen an alien, which is where where that part of the story began to come from. But you're saying it was different.
But later he retracted that, and he said that he didn't. So he retracted actually seeing the alien. He said he didn't see it.
Did he ever say that he'd seen it, Steve Roberts?
He did at first, yes. But the thing is, they were told what to say. And when Steve came here one night, he told us, he said they were told what to say. And he said, I was told to say that there were beings on board the spacecraft, but he said, I didn't actually see it.
What did you do after that? You were suspicious, you were sort of not sure about it at first?
No, I wasn't. I thought, because I knew Steve, I thought about it. I got in touch with Dot, and Dot said, no, I don't believe it.
Had she been at the party as well?
She says she was, but I can't remember her being there, but she says she was. I know. Anyway, we said we'd get together, and that, we would sort of go down Rendlesham and try to sort some more witnesses out and everything. But Steve seemed so genuine, and he had given me information about other UFO stories that he, back in the base, back in the States, when he was there, and that he used to had to chase several and go and see several witnesses and that.
Well, that suggests that he was working for the Office of Special Investigations, doesn't it? If he was investigating UFO stories in the USA for the military, he wouldn't be.
Well, Steve was a lot more than what people think he was, because when I think it was President Carter, when President Carter came over to Mildenhall, guess who was the official soldier who had to go and who had to go and protect him? Steve was.
He had an apparent rank in the military, but he actually had a real rank that was much higher, and he was an investigating officer, especially for unusual, shall we say, incidents like UFO reports. And of course, the interesting thing there is that Carter is one of the US presidents that actually admitted to seeing a UFO himself.
Yes, that's right. Well, Dot came down, or I picked her up, and we went down to the forest, and we started asking around. We went to the local people, went to the farmers, went to the shopkeepers, and we started asking around everybody. Several of the farmers said they'd heard the story, but they weren't interested. One of the farmers who we went to, he said that something came over his house that night, and they scared his cattle, and one of his cattle escaped and got hit by a taxi, and that killed the taxi, killed his cow. So, and the shopkeeper in Ike, anyway, she said that she had some guys going there one day, and they were talking about a fire in the forest, and one guy said, we're not supposed to be talking about this, and he said, that's all right. He said, nobody can hear us. And they were talking about something happened in the forest and there was a fire. So, and the fire engines were called, the firemen were called out, and the Ipswich firemen were called out. I know this is true because I interviewed them. The Ipswich firemen were called out, but before they got there, they got turned back and said they weren't needed. That was only the Woodbridge.
I was going to say that because there's no reports of fire engines on the site on night 1, is there?
No.
That's covering up the famous statement. There's been a crash in the forest, and I forget now who it was who said it. It didn't crash; it landed.
Yeah.
So they're shifting it to say that there was, because people were talking about lights in the forest, a possible fire in the forest, that there was a natural explanation for this. Because there was an account that when the craft landed, or when the ball came down on night 3, there was a reflection, and it was so bright there was a reflection in the windows of the house,
yes,
the farmhouse.
Yes. So
that might be a way of covering that up. Because didn't the kid talk about
he did, but...
I think it was wasn't a girl?
Yeah,
she talked about
but she was only about 10
when
she saw us, and she said that she was looking out of her bedroom window, right, and she saw the lights come down, she saw the grass come down. She said it was so big it could have squashed all them trees, but it came down and actually landed on the field. Now, Dot and I have been in that house. Dot and I looked at her bedroom window, and it doesn't even look in that angle, it looks in the opposite direction. And she said, and we saw all these little things, she said there's 4 or 5, but they're only little tiny things, little tiny beings.
So you've got together with Dot, you're going around asking people off your own bat, you're recording, are you taking notes of what they're saying, or
yes,
are you recording them?
Yes, no, I've got notebooks and everything. And
how did you do it? Did you take notes at the time or write it up immediately afterwards?
No, I took most of the time I took notes.
All right.
When we were talking, when we'd interviewed people, I was taking notes.
When does Jenny Randalls come into the picture?
And
did you want her to come into the picture?
No.
On you go.
When Dot suggested we get in touch with Jenny and tell Jenny, it must have been 1981 or 82, and I said no, I'd want Jenny involved, and she said yeah, but I work for Jenny, she's my boss. So she said she's got to be involved. I said this isn't her case. I said it was told to me, not to her. And she said, well, I think we ought to get in touch with her. Anyway, I said no. I kept saying no. But then, not long after that, Dot had been in touch with Jenny, and I was cross with Dot.
That created a bit of tension.
Yeah, to think that she'd been in touch with Jenny when I didn't want her involved.
Did you fall out at that point?
No, we didn't actually fall out, but I wasn't happy with her.
And she knew you weren't happy?
Yeah, oh yeah. She knew I didn't like Jenny. And that Jenny would take it completely over, which she did.
Was it Jenny who arranged the publication? Did she find the publisher for the book?
Yes.
Right. And the arranging for the advance would have gone through Jenny?
Yeah.
And then some of that money was used to take Dot and Jenny to meet Larry Fawcett in New York?
Yes.
It was, wasn't it? Did you not fancy going in a jolly like that yourself?
I couldn't go because I'd already taken 5 weeks off work, and they told me if I took any more time off I'd lose my job.
You were taking the time off to do the investigation?
Yeah. I took 5 weeks off and they told me I weren't allowed to take any more.
That must have been a bit of a bother.
No, it didn't bother me. I didn't want to go. I don't like flying anyway.
Neither do I.
And we already had some Japanese coming over here to do the research and everything, and I said I would stay here to go round with them and take them round, so I did.
The Japanese were the first to do what you might call a proper film about the events, weren't they?
Yes.
Was it a very important trip for them in terms of getting Larry Fawcett to, become fully involved in the investigation and get the freedom of information request in?
Well, they were going over to meet Larry Warren anyway, weren't they?
What about Bustinza, whose story he seems to have stolen? Did you know Bustinza?
Yeah.
He seems like the one guy that everyone wants to come forward and tell his version of the story because he was there.
Yeah,
if there's any truth in Larry's story, the truth is Adrian Bustinza's truth, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but he won't come forward, really, because he said all he's going to say.
You're holding back something, I know you are.
Did you know that Burris and Bustinza actually saw something when they were down there together?
On night 3?
Mm.
Yes, I think we do know that now.
You did know. that they...
Is that when Burroughs disappears into the craft and Bustinza trips and he's held down and he sees John disappearing?
John disappears onto the craft and the craft takes him to Burrow Mound and drops him at Burrow Mound. How did Burris and Penniston, Colonel Holt and the rest of them go there, walk through the river, get absolutely soaking wet and go up on Burrow Mound?
Burrow Mound is the one that's to the east, away from the landing site, yeah? Okay, you're raising a number of things there. First of all, Burroughs says that he doesn't remember anything after he saw the flash of light. Yeah? Is there another version of that story where he's told other people that he did remember what happened after that, or he did have an experience after the flash of light?
Well, he said he ended up on Burrow Mound.
Right, okay. So there's a flash of light, and then the next thing he remembers, he's on Burrow Mound.
Yeah.
But there's also the confusion that Jim Penniston, when he visited the site a few years ago, I think with Holt, didn't go to where they say it was on night one. He goes down to Eastgate and beyond Eastgate.
Yeah, that's right.
To, what do you call that part? Just, he says that that's where he saw the craft. And John and he have a completely different version of where they saw the craft. And the only thing that might actually unite those two things is that element you've just brought up, that the craft was able to absorb them or take them in individually or together and take them to other places in the area. Yeah? Where do you think, or where do you know that Burroughs and Penniston first encountered the craft on night one?
Well, there's 7 landing sites, so you don't know. That's
why it's such a rabbit hole of an event or series of events, because it's so difficult. I'm going to come back to the book now because this is exciting that your investigations have started a process which has led to an advance from a publisher, which in itself is an achievement.
Mm-hmm.
And George and Jenny are off in America talking to the top guy in ufology. One of the top guys in ufology at that time in 1980 was Larry Fawcett.
Yeah.
Very well respected. And you're here working on another investigation, another aspect of it. Was it exciting at the time, the sense that you'd started? Something had happened and you were investigating it and you were bringing what had happened forward into the world?
I suppose so, but...
Well, you're so modest, Brenda.
I know, but I don't look at it like that.
I know.
I just look at it... I love doing that. I love that, what I do, and I don't look at it as though that I was excited or anything like that,
Okay, there's another aspect of this which is more sinister. You were both threatened, or you had stuff happening that seemed to be threatening you during your investigation, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that, what happened to you and Dot?
Which one?
Let's just do it chronologically. What happened first? What was the most frightening thing that happened first?
Dot phoned up and said there was 2 men watching her of a black car with black windows.
Outside her house? Outside
her house. Would I go up? And I said no, because Dot was always phoning me up and asking me to go up there. And I said, no, Dot, why? These 2 men are outside and I'm scared. She said, I don't go out. So I, like silly idiot me, went up there anyway. And I said, well, what do you want to do then? And she said, well,
Did you see the guys in the car when you arrived?
No, I just see somebody sitting in there. They had blackened out windows.
You did see
I looked as though they were smoking because you could see a red glow. Just as like a funeral car, a great big huge black thing.
It's almost a cliche,
Cadillac.
Isn't it? A men in black Cadillac.
Don't talk to me about men in black. Oh, God. And when the first time we'd been followed round the forest. Loads of times, been followed home from the forest. Loads of times.
By whom?
I don't know. You never know. I had threatening phone calls too. Mm-hmm. And, I had several threatening phone calls. Just say, leave it alone, don't go there, you'll be sorry if you do, and all that sort of thing.
Did that frighten you?
Yeah, no. Got some letters too, which said, we know what you're doing, where it can actually see what you're doing, we're there when you're down there. No.
It's not the sort of abusive letters you would expect to get from nutters, is it? That would just be horrible, sweary sort of stuff. It sounds more sinister than that. It sounds like classic follow-up to a big UFO story.
I know.
They threaten the witnesses. That happened.
Oh yeah, it didn't work glass though.
Yeah.
No, it didn't work glass at all. Yeah, my car.
Yeah.
When we went down there to do an interview, my car played up. If that's the one you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. That played up and that went fast, really, really fast. And Doc was saying, "Slow down, Brenda, slow down." We'd gone through these potholes. And I said, "I ain't even got my feet on the pedals, look." And my feet were, I guess I took my feet off the pedals. And they weren't even on the pedals. Anyway, where we got to the end of the track, the car just stopped. I took it into the garage because when we come back, the red light kept flashing on and off, on and off and off. And that worried me. So I took it into the garage next day, up here, and he looked at the car, looked it all over, nothing, couldn't find anything wrong with the car whatsoever. He had no idea why.
Okay. But you carried on, and eventually the book comes out. What was the methodology of writing the book? Did Jenny take over? Did she take over most of the writing, or did you do parts of the writing yourself, or how did it work?
I got a letter from Jenny upstairs, Sue. This is the truth. It's not a lie. I done three quarters of the writing. Dot done a little bit, and Jenny done the rest.
Uh-huh. So,
yeah.
And was it Jenny the one that pulled it together, put the three different parts together, and submitted it to the publisher?
Yeah.
Are you able to tell us, if you want to, what the deal was, how it was put together, and what happened afterwards?
I don't know, and this is the truth, because it was all kept secret. That was only Larry Warren telling me and Dot one night that they got paid £25,000, and Dot and I only got paid £2,500 each.
They would be Harry and Jenny.
Jenny and Mike Sachs, I think.
Who was the journalist who wrote the story for the News of the World?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
And them three shared all the rest, and me and Dot just got £2,500.
There was a sale, and you don't know how much it was for, basically.
No, and
but there was thousands of pounds involved in the sale, perhaps tens of thousands of pounds. You got a small part of that.
Yes.
You and Dot.
Yes.
And I think I would be unhappy under those circumstances if I was you, but I didn't know what the deal was, and I thought that other people were getting paid more.
Yes.
Especially if you three were the ones who had agreed to do the work together. Did you ever have a contract between the three of you? You and
yes. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Fine. But although there's an unhappiness about how the story got there and what the financial ramifications were, it does end up on the front page of the News of the World, the famous headline, UFO lands in Suffolk and it's official.
Yes.
And that's all based, the linchpin of the story is the memo from Colonel Charles Hall, which was required by the RAF base liaison officer.
Yeah, Moreland,
who said, "Give me something to put on file."
That's right.
But it'll never come out. And Holt writes the memo about the events, although he changes the date deliberately or not, we don't know. And he changes some of it, but a lot of it is what happened. And he gives it to Moreland, who sends it to his liaison at the Ministry of Defence, who puts it in the file, and that's going to remain buried forever. Except it doesn't, because back to America, Steve Fawcett is putting in a Freedom of Information request, which at that time didn't exist in the UK, of course. It only came in about 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. He gets an FOI, and someone in the administration probably shouldn't have, but pulls it out and says, "There you are."
Yes.
And that comes back to you guys.
Yeah.
So was it Steve? So when Steve got it, who did he send it to? Did he send it
Larry
to
Fawcett.
Larry.
Larry.
When Larry gets it out, who does he send it to?
He sent it to Dot. Dot was the first one to get it, although Jenny said that she was the first one to get it.
All right.
But Dot was.
Mm-hmm. But that allows the News of the World to buy the story and send a journalist up there to do the investigation and putting the story together. And then suddenly...
That was Keith Beebe.
Keith Beebe, of course. There's actually some disagreement between Beebe and Warren about what Warren said, but I think someone made a recording of it, Dot made a recording of it, and she shows that Larry's lying. But we'll leave that to the side just now. It must have been... I mean, again, if I was you, I'd be quite excited going to my newsstand on a Sunday morning and seeing there it is. Because the readership of News of the World then was in the many millions. It was the highest selling newspaper in the UK. It sold, it must have sold 10 or 20 million copies a week or something of that order. And there you are. And there's a ripple effect. It spreads out into the media. And at first, you had some interviews done at that time on the back of that, yeah? We had loads of interviews.
Dot was down here and we were doing, we'd done every newspaper possible, every radio broadcast possible, every television broadcast possible.
You should have had an agent at that time charging for it, so you were getting some income from it.
No, we didn't. They paid for taxi fares, they didn't pay for anything else. That was funny on radio, on the Anglia television. Because when we went on there, the guy on there said to us, "We've got to speak to you about these little green men." And Dot said, "Let's get this right, mate. They were not little green men." That was funny, it was.
Was this on air? This was live on air?
Yeah, live on air, yeah.
Looking back on it now, at the moment you're not going to the forest because you're slightly indisposed, but when you're able to, you'll be going back down there again.
Yes, I'm going tomorrow actually.
Yeah? I mean, you love the place, don't you?
Yes.
Do you see the place as a kind of living entity? Do you see it as something that's more than just a bunch of trees?
Yes.
How do you see it?
Well, I just see it as trees have got an aura. Trees are alive. So when you work through, you get the energy off them, and you feel the energy. And very often when you've been down the forest all day and half the night and you come home here, you can't relax, you can't sleep because you've got all this energy going around you.
Yeah. So it never becomes boring for you, it never becomes tedious or mundane. It's always fresh, it's always new, you always see something different.
Yeah.
And you always get a feeling that's special.
Yes.
Well, it's obviously your healing place then, isn't it?
That's why I want to get back there.
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
I missed something out. It's kind of part of the story, but I want to talk about it now. I mentioned the Holt memo, and we started talking about the meeting with Holt. What was that meeting like?
That was all right. He was fine. He was fine with me all the time. He was fine with me.
Was he trying to get information out of you at the time, do you think?
No, not at all. We wrote emails to each other. We wrote to each other, and he always said to me, "If you find out anything, then let me know." And he knows that I could communicate with them, and he said, "Let me know if anything important comes through." And not last year, the year before, when we done the conference at the Woodridge, I mean, it was like old friends. He came and he put his arms around me and said how nice it was to see me again.
So you only met Holt the one time at that time? Excuse me.
Since 1982, I've met Holt hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's in America.
No, he comes over here a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And he comes to visit, or?
Yeah.
That's not generally known about, though, is it?
I don't know. I got photographs of Holt in this house.
I'm not doubting you for a second. I'm just surprised.
Yeah. No, I've got Holt standing outside my house. So I've got Holt in this house.
I've seen one video where you're meeting Holt in a kind of office, but I don't know when that was.
Yeah.
At Bentwaters?
Yeah, on Bentwaters.
There's a control tower.
Yeah, the control tower.
Yeah.
I done an interview with Holt in the control tower. Yeah.
It was nice what you were saying a minute ago about the forest and your relationship with it. Why do you think the Rendlesham Forest incidents happened in Rendlesham? I know that's a weird question, but if you can answer it, please do.
Well, where else could it have happened? I mean, there's so much around there, isn't there?
Do you think it's a kind of... It has a magnetic attraction for phenomena?
Yeah, it's full of phenomena, isn't it?
So do you think that what happened across those 3 nights was extraterrestrial in nature? Or was terrestrial? Or was a combination of the two?
I think by what English people have said, what they saw, there had to be something to do with extraterrestrials, because if there weren't no extraterrestrials involved in this, coming through that portal, which Holt has admitted there was a portal there and they came through the portal without even us asking him or mentioning it. He just said it off his own bat.
Holt actually said that?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did, yeah. He said that in the Bull Hotel when we were in there. I think that you can't say that the English people were telling lies. So we have to believe part of what the English people says. Because why would the English people suddenly come out with a load of lies? Like the couple in the wood who saw the craft go over, and they described the craft and described the lights underneath. So why would they want to lie?
I mean, that's high strangeness. Of course, some of the high strangeness you also talk about in your book in different ways. Tell me again about your strange lodger, if he was a lodger who turned up.
What, David Daniels?
David Daniels, yes.
The reptilian?
Yes. Please.
He turned up at Dot's house.
Saying what? Introducing himself as?
He introduced himself and said he'd come to find me. And Dot said, well, she don't live here. What do you want? Next thing Dot knew, he was in the front room. And she said, what do you want? How did you get in here? You didn't come past me. How did you get in here? Anyway, Dot being so scared, she phoned me up. And she said, can you come up, Bren? I've got a strange man here who's asking to see you. Oh, Dot, not again, for goodness sake. That's 30 miles up there, you know. What do you want now? No, Bren, honestly, he wants to see you. So I said, okay, Dot. And she was really upset. So I got in my car, I went up there. And he was sitting in a chair, I walked in, and I just said to him, hello, and he said, hello. You know, I thought, that's strange, you know, I seem to recognise him, but I don't, you know. Anyway, he said, we got to go for a walk. He said, I'm David Daniels, we've got to go for a walk because I've got a lot to tell you. Dot said, you're not going anywhere with him. And he said, yeah, must go, I've got to talk to Brenda. I've got to talk to her. So we went for a walk anyway. I don't know where we walked. We just walked and walked and walked. And everything. He was telling me that he was a reptilian from up there, and that he came down and he took over a priest's body, and he later on he showed me a Bible and a cross and everything that belonged to a priest anyway. And he was telling me he had to come down to give some information and he was going to show me all this information. Anyway, we went back to Dot, and Dot was absolutely fuming, you know, and she said, get out, get out, get out. And I said, hang on, Dot, let him say what he's got to say. Anyway, he was talking to us and that, but Dot wouldn't have it, and he said to me, I've got to come back with you. I've got to come back with you. I said, but I've got nowhere for you to stay. We've got a caravan. So he said, I'll do. So I brought him back here, didn't I, to come in the caravan.
Where was the caravan?
It was parked outside.
Outside this house?
Yeah, we had a caravan. And so he stayed in there. And he didn't eat anything, only green vegetables. He only drank water. And he never ever came in to use the toilet. Never changed his clothes, but he was always immaculate. Always immaculate.
Tell me how he was dressed.
He had sort of like a t-shirt on, black trousers, and right a long black coat. He had blonde hair which was parted in the middle. And he said to me, well, I've got all this to tell you. I've got a big map to show you. And he got this map and he laid it in the middle of his room. And he was crossing out all bits and pieces, of bits and pieces of people's birth signs. When he come to my birth sign, I didn't tell him. He just said, "You're a Libra, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." So he put a cross against it. He said, "You've got to be a leader." He said, "You've got to be a leader in a lot of things. You've got to lead people," and all that. Anyway, he kept going on. And, first, sorry, I've jumped a bit, because when he was at Dot's, and Dot had told him he could stay there for a little while, that first night he was there, he asked me to go upstairs, and I went upstairs, and Dot said, "You're not going up there, you're not going up there." And I said, "Why? I'm not scared of him." She said, "Well, you're not going up there." Anyway, I went and knocked on the door, and he said, "You can come in if that's not Dot." I said, "That's Brenda." He said, "All right, well, come in." And so I went in, and he was laying on the bed, and he said, "Right, I've got something to show you, and I don't want you to be scared." Anyway, he started breathing really, really heavy, and then he changed, his face changed, all his arms and everything changed, great big veins all stood up, and his face changed all really weird, like a lizard and that, only for about 2 minutes. Then he started talking in this weird language, and then that was it. He said, "I had to show you that." He said, "I just had to show you that." But he said, "I'll never show anybody. I won't show Dot, but I'll show you." And then I went back downstairs. Oh no, he asked me for some sweets. He had dolly mixtures, and he had to eat these sweets to keep his energy up. And I went down, and Dot was saying, "Take him back with you. I don't want him here. Take him back with you." That's when I brought him home. And he stayed in the caravan.
Even after he'd showed himself to you as a lizard?
I wasn't scared of him.
Right.
No. And Dot, anyway, he came back and he stayed. Chris weren't very happy. Stayed in the caravan. Anyway, I got a phone call from the CIA and the SNI or whoever, and said, "Excuse me, but you've got this man staying with you." "No, I haven't." "Yes, you have." I said, "No, I haven't." And they said, "Well, you have, because we found some books of yours in this place up in London, this flat up in London, and these books had your name in." I said, "Well, I haven't got anybody staying here with me." And so he said I had, and I kept saying I hadn't. They said, "We're trying to contact him." I said, "Well, why do you want to contact somebody who's supposed to be with me and he isn't?" And so they said, "Because he's murdered somebody." I said, "And I know why you're after him, and it isn't because he's murdered anybody." I said, "It's because of what he is." And the phone went dead. Anyway, David eventually went, and he went to stay with a friend of mine up at Hoxton, Mr. Trent. He went to stay there and Mr. Trent phoned me up one day. He said, "Brenda, you've got to get rid of him. You've got to come and tell him to go." He said, "Because I can't stand it anymore." He said, "He is so weird." He said, "He knows everything we're talking about, everything we're saying. He finishes our sentences for us. He can read any book and know every single page in the book and what I said." I said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "Well, he's weird." He said, "He don't eat anything." He said, "And he only drink water." I said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "I'm now got to take him up the A12, he said, towards London, and I've got to dump him out on the side of the road." He said, "Because I can't stand him, he can't have him here anymore." Anyway, that wasn't the last time I heard of David. Not long after that, well, maybe a year after that, a man from Southend phoned me up and said to me, "I think I had a friend stay here of yours stay here with me." He said, "Somebody who claims to be a reptilian." He said, no, I honestly do believe him. He said, because I've met reptilians before. So he said, and I'm doing a film. He said, can you please come down? He said, so we could do a film with you. I said, no, I'm working. There's no way can I get down there. I said, I just can't get down there. He said, well, he said, he hasn't got long left because he's got to go and meet his people. He said, with his flying saucer, with his UFO, to go back home. I said, I'm sorry, I just can't get down there. And he kept badgering me and badgering me. I said, well, you can badger me a lot, I can't get down there. So that was that, basically. And I didn't, oh yeah, I didn't hear from David, but I did hear about him. There's a lady in Australia, and she had some friends, and they've done a coach tour. And this man was someone that lived, he was walking along the road, and they picked him up. And he said his name was David Sutherland. And anyway, so they picked him up on this coach, and they went to this diner, and they had something to eat and everything. He didn't eat anything. They said, can we take some photographs? And he said no. Well, he told me no, because nothing would come out. I took photographs and nothing came out. They said to him, I said, yeah, no, you can't take photographs. So I took a photograph of him, nothing came out. There was nothing came out at all.
So there was like 3 people in the photograph, they said there was only 2.
Yeah,
sort of
there was nothing came out at all. Not of him.
He wasn't there.
No.
Tell me what you think he was, who or what he was.
Well,
you think he was a reptilian who was visiting, and he came to you because of your own intuition or your own talents?
Well, he ain't the only one who's come here. That's the problem.
to this house?
Yeah, he ain't the only one. Loads and loads of people have come here, and I had other people come here before who said they're reptilians, and either I believed them or I haven't believed them.
Was he the only one who transformed himself?
Yeah.
You mentioned in passing meeting the Admiral, the Lord Sir Hill Norton, who was the highest ranking military person in Europe at one time, and who was a great advocate for the reality of the Rendlesham Forest incidents, wasn't he? How did you get in touch with him?
David got in touch with him.
David
Daniels.
This is one of the most extraordinary things, that the person who introduced you and Jenny and Dot effectively to the Admiral was David Daniels, the reptilian. I find that extraordinary. Once you'd met the Lord, the Admiral, what did he say? How tell me what he said and how helpful he was.
Right, when we got there, right, we went up to the door. I had a briefcase.
Is this his house or the House of Lords?
No, the House of Lords.
Wow.
Right. I had a briefcase and that had to be searched. This guy had come and searched it. And then he sort of patted David down and said that was all right. And then he led us through to Lord Hill Norton. He was sitting behind a great big long table in this room. Great big table. He told us to sit down, so I sat there, David sat there. I put Sky Crash on the table. David started talking about his planet and the water and how they wanted help and all the rest of it and that. Lord Hill Norton looked at Sky Crash and I don't know about that. He said, that's the one the Americans done, isn't it? And I said, yes. And I put the book there and he said, I'm not interested. He said, have you heard of the thing that the fishermen always say they caught a fish but it's got bigger and bigger? He said, all I can say about that is that's what happened down at Rendlesham. He's very interested in David and where he come from and what was going on and everything, but he wasn't interested in Rendlesham. He said, and the other thing he said, right at the end, he said, if I say anything about Rendlesham, he said, my pension will be gone. He said, I've got my pension. I've got a lovely bungalow I want to retire to. He said, and if I comment on that at all, he said, that will all be gone. I said, no, that's fine. But he did comment on it. Yeah, he did. He said that was But he meant positively, I think, if he commented on it.
But there's film of him standing and saying there was the visitation of possibly or probably alien craft. And that was quite a statement for a man of his position to make, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's one of the great statements, I think, that verifies the reality of the Rendlesham Forest incident.
But when we got up to leave anyway, he kept David's books. What David took. He gave me his Sky Crash bag and kept David's books. And he shook his hand and he said, "Very nice seeing you. Thank you for coming seeing me." He said, "I'd like to see you and talk to you again."
Do you think, given his position within the British establishment, he reported his meetings with David to the highest echelons?
Well, he told Nick Pope about him because Nick Pope said, "Strange thing happened," he said. "I spoke to Lord Hill Norton and he said, I've now had the funniest conversation with the strangest man." And Pooper said that, told people that.
The other thing in that sort of area that I wanted to ask you about was you and Dot and Jenny going to the Ministry of Defence and saying, "We demand to see the person who deals with UFOs."
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, we went in there and they agreed to see us, and when we got in there they didn't want to see us, they didn't want to tell us anything. So we got Colonel Holt's memo and we got other things that we want to ask him. And
this is before the News of the World story, before the book's published, yeah? You go to see them.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Right.
And anyway, we sat there, and we sat there, and we sat there. And in the end, Dot said, "I'm fed up with this," she said. "I'm going to get up and I'm going to stand outside on the steps. I'm going to shout and holler as loud as I can about Colonel Holt's memo and what he said and about the Rendlesham case." Well, in minutes, the Minister of Defence lady come through. Oh, I can't remember her name. Mm-hmm. We should do. She was the one who held everything. Anyway, so she said, nothing happened. She said, nothing happened. She said, there was nothing happened at all. She said, it was all just not this and that and nothing. And she wouldn't tell us anything, and Jenny came and started saying things to her. She said, "I had letters from you, Miss Randalls." She said, "I've had letters from you." She said, "And we've told you." She said, "Nothing happened. There wasn't anything happened at all." She said, "It was all just some silly thing made up."
One of the things that strikes me about this, Brenda, is the fantastic story of Rendlesham, with the wonderful teaming of Brenda Butler and Dot Street. And I wonder if you could talk about how you saw the way you worked together and your friendship.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Dot and I, we worked really good together. We made a really good team. Everybody said that because Dot done chatting and she went up to everybody. Mind, she bribed them.
What did she use as bribe?
I'm not going to tell you. You don't have to ask yet. Anyway, she bribed and we went to these pubs and that, and Dot was bribing these people to talk and everything. While Dot was getting them to talk, I was writing it down. So Dot was the one who was asking the questions and everything, and I was the one with my notepaper writing it down and that. So everywhere we went, in the pubs or around the town or in the shops and that, if Dot would ask questions and that, and I would write what they were saying down. So yeah, we did. We made a good team, really. She was the one who got us arrested on base, by the way.
It's our fault.
Dot did. She got us arrested on base.
You were a good team, and you were pals, and you were on quite an incredible journey together. If Dot hadn't been part of that with you, how would you feel it would have been different?
I'd have probably done it myself. I'd done other things. I'd done other ones before by myself, so I'd probably have found a local person just to come down there with me and done it.
You would always
Yeah.
have got to had a partner to do it with.
Oh yeah.
Just because of the way the methodology you talked about someone talking and you taking the notes.
That was because Dot came in '79, introduced herself to me, and I thought of her and that.
But if you had brought somebody else into it, how different would it have been? I mean, what I'm trying to say is what was it about Dot that
Was she was nutty,
more
wasn't she?
special or whatever? Well, yeah. But do you know what I'm trying to say? I mean,
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I'm curious about the character side of it, and the people side of it. That's what I'm curious about.
Well, that'd have probably been completely different, wouldn't it?
I mean, the great thing about Rendlesham and your involvement in it is that it's a story of a woman at a time when women weren't as greatly respected or given their place as they are now, the proper place. When you kind of took on the world to tell the story of something astonishing that had happened, and you did manage to get it out there to the world, and it's still going on 40 years later. It's still in the top 3 UFO events of all time. And the main reason for that, I think, is because of Brenda Butler, with the help of Dot Street. Brenda, thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for today, and thank you
That's all right.
for everything you've done to keep this flame alive, because it is really important, and so are you.
Thank you for coming.